Think back to what you were doing on May 30th. Maybe you were getting ready for your Memorial Day, maybe preparing food for your cookout or remembering loved ones with flowers. Now imagine that you think you have done something great for your country, something that you think should have honor. Instead, that day you are being tied to a stake with wood and straw all around it. Now you see the executioner coming towards you with a torch lighting it at your feet. Now the flames are taking your life away. This is how Joan of Arc's May 30th, 1431 was spent. According to the site nativeheaven.com, Joan of Arc is one of the most remarkable people to ever live, and her name is easily recognized by virtually everyone in the world today. I'm interested in this topic because on May 30th I was looking through the paper and noticed that it was the date of Joan's death. So I was interested in learning more. So this is about the life and death of Joan of Arc, including her messages from God, her involvement in the 100 Years' War, and what happened during her trial that led to her death and her canonization. Joan of Arc was born on January 6, 1412, but the date is not certain. She belonged to a peasant family. When growing up, she helped around the family farm like a typical peasant child would, and went to church often. At around the age of 13, she started hearing voices, at first for her to better her behavior. Later, she started getting visions from St. Michael, St. Margaret, and St. Catherine. She was told that they were sent by God and to follow what they advised. She was also told to help drive England out of France and help with the crowning of Charles VII. And according to Tejvan R. Pettinger, her visions were as real as someone standing right in front of you, with a bright shining light. In 1428, she finally listened and believed that she was meant to save France. She went and saw the commander of Charles VII's army, but the commander quickly rejected her and told her to go home. France felt as though they were losing the 100 Years' War, until Joan of Arc came around. The commander that she had previously seen finally believed her when she told him of a loss that will and did happen days later. She was finally able to see Charles VII. But as a test, he disguised himself in the crowd to see if she could recognize him. When she walked in male attire, she knew who was sitting on the throne was not Charles, and she directly went to the real Charles VII. According to middleages.org.uk, Joan states to Charles VII, God has sent me to deliver France from her enemies. You shall shortly be crowned in the cathedral in Reims, and I am to lead the soldiers you are about to send for the relief of Orleans. So God has directed me. Under my guidance, victory will be theirs. Before he fully trusted her, she was put through tests by bishops and doctors. They found nothing that would make her a heretic and quickly gained theirs and Charles' trust. Charles sent her an army of about 5,000 men to relieve the city of Orleans from the French. She led her soldiers at just 18 years old. She was on a white horse, along with full armor, a sword, and a special banner. According to the article, Joan of Arc liberates Orleans. She claimed that she never killed anyone with her sword, and it was just there for her protection. The sword itself was miraculously provided to her by heaven, according to Jane Marie Pizzino, contributor of Joan of Arc, 1412 to 1431. One by one she helped take down the English forts, and only receiving a small wound by an arrow. Her French soldiers started calling her the Maid, another name that she is known of. After this success, she and her soldiers pushed the English almost completely out of the country. Word started getting around about her victories, almost that she was more than just human power, according to middleages.org.uk. She finally urged Charles VII to go to Reims, and he was crowned king. Afterwards, she asked to be sent back home because she did what God told her to do, push England out and help Charles get crowned king. According to nativeheaven.com, Joan was able to completely turn around the war, which was lasting for about 100 years in the favor of the French, and in a matter of only months. While on another mission of King Charles, Joan was captured and sold to England. According to Norman J. Wilson of 100 Years' War, Joan was separated from the main body of her force, captured by the Burgundians, and eventually sold to the English. For a year, Joan was imprisoned and later put on trial for heresy, with no help from King Charles VII. Once Joan had served her purpose in helping Charles gain his crown, he seemed to no longer care what became of her. A quote from Maid of Heaven explaining why Charles didn't help. While waiting for trial for heresy of her clothing and being a witch, she was not allowed to attend Mass and had male guards. She asked to be sent to a church prison where she would have nuns as guards and to be able to have her male clothing back for her own protection. According to Alan Williamson, author of Joan of Arc's brief biography, they refused her on both accounts. Afraid if they allowed her to wear her male clothing, she'll go back to heresy. While waiting on trial, her guards stole her female clothing and left her with just male clothing, which she was forced to wear. With this event, the judge charged her as a relapsed heretic, according to Williamson. On May 30th, 1431, Joan of Arc was burned at the stake in the marketplace of Rouen. She was tied to the stake and received a cross, which she clasped in her hands, and until she died, the only words out of her mouth was Jesus. After her death, her ashes were thrown into the Seine River. 24 years later, her case was reopened. Williamson later states that she had been convicted illegally and without basis by a corrupt court, operating in the spirit of manifest malice against the Roman Catholic Church and indeed heresy. It was ruled that she was convicted illegally. Joan of Arc was canonized as a saint in 1920. These were the events leading up to her unrighteous death of a saint. Thinking back on what you were doing on May 30th, you can probably safely say it was nothing that Joan of Arc experienced. She's often called Maid of Orleans because of her victorious battles which she led of men. She was also part of the crowning of the rightful king of France. But during one of the battles she was captured and imprisoned. She was accused of being a witch and a heretic, and she was burned at the stake. But when the case was reopened, they found the trial was illegal, and she was later canonized in 1920. From Pettinger, she embodied the religious devotion with great bravery and humility. Her life helped change the course of French history. Thank you.